Who's been brought to court? Bradley Manning for exposing that massacre. Julian Assange for publishing that massacre. Now this is one of the most significant trials of our era. This war has gone longer than the Vietnam War. There is no end in sight for this war. Meanwhile, we see the American empire falling from Tunis to Egypt to Bahrain. This is like 1989 for the Soviet Empire when the Berlin Wall came down. They lost East Germany, then they lost Hungary, then they lost Poland, they lost Czech, they lost Slovak. This is what's happening in the Middle East. Are the Americans going to take this lightly? No. They have an empire, the greatest, most destructive empire in human history, and they will take us all down with it. Unless we build a movement, a non-violent movement, that supports resistance like Bradley Manning and Julian Assange, and we disable and we bring this empire down non-violently. We can do that. Who would have imagined that the Pharaoh Marabec of Egypt would fall like that? Who would have imagined that Shah of Iran would fall like that? Now these things can happen, these changes can happen, but what I've come to Ireland and I've found a deep cynicism and resignation. I don't even find anger on the street. I'm totally bamboozled by that. These clowns, Cowan and Ahern, who claim to be Irish Republicans, who claim to be the party of De Valera, and Fine Gael, who claim to be the party of Michael Collins, the man who invented urban guerrilla warfare, have sold out this country, have handed the economy to the IMF. Now my grandfather, he fought and he killed and he went to jail for the independence of this country. And how cynical is it that these people who claim the legacy of Collins and De Valera are handing the economy over to the IMF, who have a military base for the last 10 years at Shannon Airport. And it's just, it's really, really sad, Like, this is free speech. I look pretty eccentric, not just because of my dreadlocks, but because of actually speaking in the street. Now this is active citizenship. This is what democracy looks like. It's not very tidy, but it's exciting. All they want you to be is passive consumers. They want you to think that the only choice you've got in the world is the freedom to shop. The choice between Reebok and Nike, Coke and Pepsi. They don't want you to imagine you've got any freedom in your churches, on your campuses, in your schoolyards, on your streets. And it's very important, free speech. You either use it or lose it. The great irony of this government is they've criminalised the very act that created the state. What was the first act that created the state? It was putting up a poster, the proclamation. They've criminalised that under litter laws. We know it's not about litter laws. They don't pursue McDonald's rappers and Burger King rappers. They pursue political posters in the city. And so the whole country and culture is imploding when they've actually criminalised the act that created the state. Now I'd like to make the point. My name is Ciaron O'Reilly. I grew up in the 70s. I grew up in Australia. And the only place you didn't take flack for being Irish was in the 26th century. You tried being Irish 90 miles north of here in the 70s. You paid with your life. You get killed just for wearing a Celtic top. It happens here in Glasgow as well. You tried being Irish in the 50s in America or Australia or London. That's when you face discrimination for being Irish. And no way am I going to quietly roll over as these gangsters and clowns sell us out. If there's any questions, I'd appreciate questions. Wait till this guy goes by. There's supposed to be a battle of ideas. All you've got is images on lampposts that don't tell you anything about their policies. They just tell you how good looking the candidates are. Ireland is a joke. Because you've got to be related to someone to be in Parliament here. It's like, we had to throw out the monarchy because they had you hand down the power. But nearly everyone's someone's nephew or cousin or uncle that's in Parliament here. And, I was raised with this idea that meant that if you're Irish, you put up a fight against incredible odds. I mean, that's what we thought of Ireland, right? And we've really got to look at the power you've got. If Ireland had taken a moral stance against this illegal war, which wasn't an unusual stance, the Pope opposed the invasion of Iraq. France and Germany opposed the invasion of Iraq. If Ireland just didn't, America says jump, Ireland says how high, right? If Ireland had taken a moral position, that would have affected Irish Americans. That would have affected Australian Irish. That would have affected Irish and the British military. You've got incredible cultural currency that you've got to wake up to. And it's, yeah, sorry.
What do you say to the fact that the infant mortality rate is a third of what it was in Iraq before they went in?
I question those statistics.
That's the fact. I mean,
they killed 1 million people. The sanctions killed 1 million people in the 1990s.
Yeah, I know. So they went in. There's now the infant mortality. Are you saying that those?
I mean, right or wrong, like Saddam Hussein didn't have a very good human rights record, but he had a very modern hospital system and a very modern educational system, and that infrastructure has been totally decimated by the United States.
No, it hasn't. I mean,
it has. The US and the British, I mean, at least the British, when they conquered somewhere, left a public service and a railway system in it. The hooding, that was all done by the British in the north in the 70s, and was actually stopped by the British because the European court ruled against them. Now this is where they learned this stuff from Longkesh. They took it here. The Americans don't do that at all. They just trash the place.
The fact say that
I don't agree with the fact. I think your facts are false, sorry. And it's true. Like, how many Christians are left in Iraq now? Not many, because the whole place has been polarized and turned into a sectarian hellhole where Shiites and Sunnis who used to intermarry are at each other's throats. They've actually modelled Baghdad on Belfast. You know, in Belfast they have this peace wall, which is basically a security wall, and they've actually modelled these walls in Baghdad. And what they also learned from the war in the north of Ireland in the 70s, the torture techniques they had, the stress positions, the hooding, that was all done by the British in the north in the 70s, and was actually stopped by the British because the European court ruled against them. Now this is where they learned this stuff from Longkesh. They took it to Abu Ghraib and Guantanamo, and now they've brought it back to Quantico. Now let me describe you Bradley Manning's prison conditions. At 9 p.m, Bradley Manning is kept in solitary confinement and is kept in sensory deprivation. Now in Europe you can't do that. Under Article 3 of the European Constitution, you're guaranteed association with human beings as a basic human right, along with food and heating. Under the American 8th Amendment, you're not. They can hold you in solitary confinement for the rest of your life. So at 9 p.m, Bradley Manning has to surrender his clothes and his glasses, and he sleeps he's in his boxer shorts. He's in bed. If he turns to the wall while he's asleep, US Marines rush into his cell and wake him up. If he puts his hand over his head while he's asleep, US Marines rush into his cell and wake him up. He's woken up at 5 a.m. From 5 a.m. to 9 p.m, the US Marines say every 5 minutes they demand an audible response from him. These people who don't care about him say, "Are you okay?" And the guy's got to respond. Every 5 minutes. It's a head-wrecking thing, right? He gets 1 hour of exercise a day. That exercise is done in chains and manacles in a room. If he stops walking during that hour, they come and grab him, take him back to his cell. He has only correspondence from 6 people on a list. He only has 1 book and 1 magazine. So they're trying to break him and soften him up. And they're going to come into his cell after 7 months now. They have a secret grand jury meeting in Alexandria, Virginia, according to The Guardian, on Julian Assange and 2 other WikiLeaks people. They're going to go into Bradley Manning. They're going to put an arm around his shoulder and say, "Bradley, we've been to your mother's place. She's had a few strokes. Doesn't look too very well. Do you want us really going back there? Do you want us going back there, Bradley? What do you owe Assange? Give us Assange and we'll give you 10 or 20 years. That's a plea bargain, right?" And Bradley Manning is a remarkable human being. Bradley Manning's only 5'2" high. Bradley Manning's only 105 pounds. Now Bradley Manning has been bullied all his life because he's gay and he's a geek. He doesn't expect anyone to be nice to him, right? He went through high school being bullied, and that's why he hasn't been broken. He's an amazing, remarkable young man, and we need to be reaching out to him and to his family. If the FBI can find his mother in Wales, why hasn't the British peace movement found her in the last 7 months and offered her any support? Because we know from the Irish who were framed in London, the Guildford 4 and the Birmingham 6 and the Maguire 7, if they can't break you, and I've been under FBI interrogation, I've been under British Special Branch interrogation, I've been stopped by the Irish Special Branch. Once they can't break you, they turn on your sister or your mother or your daughter and threaten them. That's what they'll be doing to Bradley Manning. And so we've got to support his family. Next time the FBI comes calling to have us put west in Wales, our movement should be there around that house telling them to piss off. Take their sunglasses back to California, and we're backing this guy. I believe, I've spent 2 years in prison for anti-war resistance, right? I believe if 1% of the people who marched against this war in February '03, just 1% of them had been willing to go to jail like Gandhi and Martin Luther King, and the other 99% didn't go home feeling guilty and isolated, but actually practically supported that 1%, fed the cat, dealt with their hysterical parents, did whatever, we would have had a movement that would have stopped this war.